Imagine standing at the foot of a volcano, looking up at its towering peak, and asking yourself, how much lava is inside that mountain right now? Feels like there must be an ocean of molten rock hiding beneath the surface, waiting to burst out at any second. That picture is exciting, but it's not really how volcanoes work. The truth is more complex and also more fascinating. The amount of lava inside a volcano is not fixed, not easy to measure, and not at all like the full tank of liquid many people imagine. To begin with, we should be clear about one thing. Lava and magma are not the same. Lava is what we see flowing across the ground during an eruption. Magma is the molten rock that sits underground before it reaches the surface. So if we're asking how much lava is inside a volcano, what we're really wondering is how much magma is stored beneath it, waiting for the chance to erupt. Here's the surprising part. Volcanoes are not giant bottles filled with liquid rock. Most of the inside of a volcano is just solid rock, the same as any other mountain. Magma is stored in special areas underground called magma chambers. You might imagine these chambers as huge caves filled to the top with glowing liquid, but that's not accurate either. Instead, a magma chamber is more like a zone of rock that is partly molten and partly solid. Think of it as a thick, mushy mixture where some of the material is melted and some is not. The size of a magma chamber can vary wildly. Some are only a few kilometers across, while others can stretch for tens of kilometers. A famous example is the Yellowstone volcanic system in the United States, which has an underground magma reservoir more than 50 kilometers long. That's an enormous area, but even so, it is not filled entirely with liquid magma. Studies show that in most chambers, only about 10 to 20% is actually molten. The rest is crystal mush and solidified rock. That means even a huge chamber is not simply a giant pool of lava ready to explode. Measuring how much magma is inside a volcano is not as straightforward as it sounds. Scientists can just drill a hole and take a look. It would be far too dangerous and nearly impossible with current technology. Instead, they use indirect clues. Earthquake waves traveling through the ground behave differently when they pass through molten rock compared to solid rock. By studying these patterns, scientists can make maps of where magma might be hiding. They also watch for changes in the shape of the land. If the ground swells or bulges, it can mean magma is moving upward and pushing the surface. Another clue comes from gases. Magma contains gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. And when those gases escape through cracks, scientists can measure them to get a sense of how much molten material is below. All of these methods together give us a rough idea, but never an exact number. So how much lava could a volcano actually release? That depends entirely on the eruption. Some eruptions are relatively small, producing lava flows that cover just a few square kilometers. In 2018, the Kilauea eruption in Hawaii produced about 1 cubic kilometer of lava, which is a lot but still small compared to the biggest events in history. By contrast, the eruption of Laki in Iceland in 1783 released about 15 cubic kilometers of lava, covering vast areas of land and altering the climate for years. And then there are supereruptions, which are extremely rare but unimaginably large. A single one of these could release hundreds or even thousands of cubic kilometers of material, although much of that would be ash and gas rather than flowing lava. To put these numbers into perspective, 1 cubic kilometer of lava is enough to fill about 400,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. When Kilauea erupted in 2018, it produced enough lava to bury an entire city the size of Washington, D.C., under several meters of rock. That sounds enormous, but it's still just a fraction of what some other volcanoes are capable of. You might be wondering why, if there is so much magma underground, it doesn't all erupt at once. The reason is pressure. Magma rises toward the surface because it is less dense than the surrounding rock, but the overlying rock is heavy and strong.
Oh.
Only when enough pressure builds up can the magma crack its way to the surface. Even then, once some magma escapes, the pressure is released and the eruption slows down or stops. This means that much of the magma remains trapped underground, to be reheated and possibly erupt again in the future. That's why many volcanoes can erupt multiple times over thousands of years. They never completely empty their magma chambers in one event. It's also important to clear up the idea that volcanoes have an endless supply of lava. In movies, you often see volcanoes erupting constantly, pouring out streams of lava for years on end. In reality, Magma takes time to form deep in the earth and rise up. After a large eruption, a volcano often rests for decades, centuries, or even longer before enough new magma collects to erupt again. The supply is not infinite. It's part of a slow cycle of creation, eruption, and renewal. So, to return to the question, how much lava is inside a volcano? The simplest answer is that it depends. Sometimes there is very little, with most of the chamber being solid rock. At other times, especially before a big eruption, there may be huge amounts enough to cover cities, countries, or even alter the climate of the entire planet. But it is never as simple as a mountain completely full of liquid. The amount is always changing, and the balance between solid and molten rock makes every volcano unique. This question is not just about satisfying curiosity. Understanding how much magma is underground is critical for predicting eruptions and protecting lives. By monitoring the size and activity of magma chambers, scientists can estimate the potential scale of future eruptions and warn nearby communities. That's why volcano research is not just a matter of science, it's also about safety and survival. The next time you see an image of bright red lava streaming down the slopes of a volcano, remember that what you're seeing is only a small part of the story. The real action is happening deep below, in hidden chambers that are constantly shifting, filling, and draining over time. There is no fixed answer to how much lava is inside a volcano, but understanding the possibilities helps us appreciate both the power of nature and the importance of staying prepared for its surprises.